Hey, yo, it's Bryan here. Today, going to be talking about the San Francisco 49ers and quarterback Brian Hoyer. So, the question everyone ponders in Niner Nation is, should the 49ers bench Brian Hoyer in favor of CJ Beathard? Now, this is actually kind of a tough question. I'm pretty sure 99.9% of Niner Nation want Brian Hoyer bench because of the two performances against the Carolina Panthers and Seattle Seahawks. They were no fun to watch. Brian Hoyer do some terrible interceptions, one to Luke Kuechly, one to Bobby Wagner, and can't really get anything going with the wide receivers. So, it's been pretty bad for Brian Hoyer for the past two games, but you know what, I'll cut him a little bit of slack. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but just gonna be talking about why we should bench Brian Hoyer and why we shouldn't bench Brian Hoyer. So I hope you guys know what I mean. I'm trying to find both sides, trying to find a compromise for both sides of benching and keeping Brian Hoyer as a starter for the San Francisco 49ers. But let's get to it. So if you want to bench Brian Hoyer, yes, you could bench Brian Hoyer because he's had two terrible performances, as I said just now. And Brian Hoyer is not the guy with the intangibles, in my opinion. I tried to support him early on during the offseason. I was like, man, Brian Hoyer is just going to be a game manager. That the defense is going to do a really good job. But I was wrong, unfortunately, for the first two games. I know that's really early in the season, only 2 games, but at the same time, I think it's going to be a good indication that if Brian Hoyer might be the starter for the rest of the season, we might get some heartbreaks like the past 2 games. And the defense performing so well. It looks so awesome with, DeForest Buckner, Solomon Thomas. I wish Reuben Foster was there, but even without Reuben Foster, they look really, really good right now. The front seven, and Eric Reed just got injured in the defensive backfield, so that's going to hurt a little bit. But other than that, man, the defense looks fantastic. They look really loaded, but the offense is the Achilles heel of this team, and I think everyone knows that. And Brian Hoyer is the biggest culprit of that reasoning, that the 49ers are really bad on offense, in my opinion. Maybe it might be time for change to CJ Beathard, a new face for the 49ers, a new quarterback, a new system, I guess you can say. I wouldn't say system, but just a brand new environment for the 49er offense. Just bring a brand new person in, and maybe CJ Beathard might be the answer. Maybe he's not. I don't know, but you probably got to give him a chance to try to start for the 49ers and see what he can do. But I'll get into that in a little bit. But more reasons to bench Brian Hoyer, I don't know. The losses, I guess. I mean, we lost 2 in a row. They could have had a chance to win both the games, to be honest with you. I know the Panthers, they lost 23-3, but at the same time, I think Brian Hoyer caused really bad turnovers, a lot of 3 and outs. That was my biggest gimp on Brian Hoyer, just all those 3 and outs and what have you, and can't really move the ball going, and then the defense has to do a lot of work. They have to be on the field longer than they have to be, and it's just pretty bad. So those are pretty much the biggest reasons to bench Brian Hoyer, just those very bad turnovers, a lot of 3 and outs, and just not being able to click with his receivers. I think those are the biggest reasons why Niner Nation wants him bench in favor of CJ Beathard. So let's get into the reasons why we shouldn't bench Brian Hoyer in favor of CJ Beathard. So I think a big reason is the offensive line. The offensive line, we have to remember, is not really that good. So I'll cut Brian Hoyer some slack right there. And if they can't really get anything going, if Brian Hoyer has to be running for his life and what have you, what's the point of being a quarterback, unless you're Tom Brady. But other than that, I mean, you need an offensive line to do some work for you, block for you, so Carlos Hyde can run the ball. I mean, he's running the ball effectively, but you got to give Carlos Hyde some time to throw the ball to his receivers, to Marquise Goodwin, to Pierre Garcon. They have some good talent on the wideout position, and I guess they're not being utilized correctly and what have you. Maybe they are, but they just really can't get anything going, and that's pretty much the biggest reason not to bench Brian Hoyer in favor of CJ Beathard, because the offensive line's getting beat up, and if Brian Hoyer gets benched for CJ Beathard, is it going to be the same situation where CJ Beathard's getting beat up as well, getting pressured all the time, and not being able to click with his receivers because he doesn't have enough time to do that? So that's pretty much my biggest reasoning. But if I had to lean towards an answer, I would probably say yes. I would probably bench Brian Hoyer in favor of CJ Beathard. I talked to some of you guys in the comments below. You guys were like, oh, let's bench Brian Hoyer in favor of CJ Beathard, and a lot of Niner Nation wants that as well. Almost 99.9% of people. But I have to agree with most of you guys. I kind of want Brian Hoyer gone. Well, not gone as in gone from the 49ers, but maybe he just needs to be benched a little bit. Maybe if he just sits down a little bit, thinks about whatever, and then CJ Beathard decides to have bad games if he's the starter, maybe he can get himself back and what have you. Just need to hit the reset button and what have you. Maybe that's what he needs, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But I got to see more this Thursday night against the Los Angeles Rams. That will give me a really good answer on whether or not to bench Brian Hoyer. I know the first 2 games was really bad, as I keep saying, but I think if we see what he can do against the Los Angeles Rams tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football against the pretty good Rams defense, I would say. If he can do some work, if he can score some touchdowns against the Rams, then yeah, I'd be in favor of keeping Brian Hoyer. That'd be a really good indication. But if he has a really bad game against the Rams, if he throws like 1 or 2 interceptions, gets a pick 6, can't really get anything with his receivers, even with a terrible offensive line, I feel that we should bench Brian Hoyer in favor of CJ Beathard for the next week's game against Arizona Cardinals. And I know Arizona's not a bad team. They're not too awful. I think won in overtime against whoever. They lost to the Lions in a comeback and what have you. But I mean, the Cardinals, they played the 49ers tough, and they always beat the 49ers for the past couple of years because the 49ers have been been terrible for the past couple of years, but that's to the point. I would like to see what Brian Hoyer does in this game against the Rams before I really make a final decision. But leaning towards right now before the game, I would say yes, we should bench Brian Hoyer in favor of CJ Beathard, to be honest with you. So it's kind of sad to say because I really wanted to support Brian Hoyer. I thought Brian Hoyer was going to bring some Cleveland magic like he did a couple of years ago and somewhat in Houston during the regular season a couple of years ago as well, but he just can't get anything going. So I kind of feel bad, but we got to do what's best for the 49ers to win football games. And I don't know if Brian Hoyer's that type of guy anymore. I thought he was going to be the type of guy. Well, not really. I was hoping he was going to be the type of guy that was going to lead the 49ers to some wins, just be a game manager, let the defense do all the work, but it's not really happening. So maybe CJ Beathard, it might be his time to start for the 49ers, and I wouldn't be surprised if they yank Brian Hoyer in favor of CJ Beathard for next week, or maybe during the game against the Rams if he's having a bad game. So that's pretty much it, you guys. Please let me know what you guys think about this situation. Do you think they should bench Brian Hoyer right now, or do you think you want to wait until you see how he does against the Rams, or do you think CJ Beathard should just get the start immediately before the game against the Rams? So please let me know in the comments below. If you guys like this, please like, subscribe, do whatever you want with this. It helps the channel out. If you do subscribe and like this video and comment, I always respond to most comments, so that's a big plus right there. I don't just want to hear you guys and I don't say anything, so I respond to most comments. Please do so, and I think that's going to be pretty much it. I'll see you guys later, probably after the game, and enjoy the game. Catch you guys up later. Bye, guys. See y'all soon after the game.